You and your child aren't cute at all. Get out of this house right now, my mother-in-law shouted. Huh? This house? I paused, confused. All right, I said, then started packing my things. My husband, Scott, looked shocked. Hey, you don't have to leave like that, he said. But your dear mother told me to go. I should listen, right? I replied. Scott, don't bother with her. Come have some cake, my mother-in-law said smugly, looking pleased with herself. At that moment, I made up my mind, I would take my daughter and go back to my parents' house. My name is Julia. I'm 34 years old and work in an office. I married Scott 2 years ago. We met on a dating app and started dating for a year before getting married. Scott is kind and caring, but he's also unreliable. When we were dating, he planned fun dates and found restaurants I liked. After marriage, he helped with chores and brought me my favorite desserts when I was tired. A year after our wedding, we had a daughter. Scott was a great father, and I thought I had a wonderful husband. But no one is perfect. His biggest flaw? He's a mama's boy. At first, I noticed it with food. How's the food? I asked. It's good, but my mom's was richer, he said. I was surprised he brought up his mother out of nowhere. The more we talked, the more I realized, he thought his mom's cooking was the best. He even wanted me to cook like her. So, I tried adjusting my recipes to match. Even on trips, he would say, "What should I buy for my mom as a souvenir?" I thought it was odd that he only mentioned his mom, not his dad. Wouldn't it be normal to say, "What should we get for my parents?" But no, it was always about his mother. At first, I thought it was sweet. Lots of men are close to their moms. But over time, I realized his attachment was more than that. One day, he suddenly said, "I think we should live with my mom." What? Why? I asked. My mom and dad are getting divorced, he said. Really? Yeah, my dad cheated on her, he explained. I was shocked. My father-in-law seemed like a nice man. But I guess you never really know people. Scott continued, I don't want to leave my mom alone. Plus, if we live together, she can help take care of our daughter. That made sense. I was on parental leave, and if my mother-in-law helped, I could go back to work sooner. But I also had doubts. She liked me, but would we get along living together? I told Scott my concerns, but he reassured me. Don't worry, Julia. My mom was praising you. That made me feel better. I thought maybe we could make it work. But I was so wrong. As soon as my mother-in-law moved in, she changed completely. I can't believe you get to live in such a nice apartment. It's so annoying, she said. Huh? Don't forget, you have this life thanks to my son, she snapped. That was just the beginning. I didn't understand why she was so angry, but I calmly said, well, Scott works hard and helps with chores, so I'm grateful. She wasn't completely wrong, so I just replied, yes, I'll keep that in mind. At least you listen, that's good, she said. From that day on, she started scolding me over every little thing. Why are you putting soy sauce on fried eggs? You should use regular sauce. The bathwater is too cold, make it hotter next time. Why isn't there ice cream ready for me after my bath? You should always have some. Even though she stayed home all day, she barely did any housework. I had hoped she would help with our 1-year-old daughter, but she only helped when she felt like it, and lost interest quickly. Living with her was much harder than I expected. I realized she was even more attached to Scott than he was to her. One day, after Scott came home, she asked, how was work today? It was tough. My boss was stressed out, so I had to be extra careful, Scott replied. That's horrible. Should I file a complaint against your company for treating you like that? She said angrily. Really? Over that? Scott looked surprised. It's okay, Mom, we have to be patient, he reassured her. Oh, what a kind child you are, just like an angel, she gushed. It felt weird hearing her call a grown man in his 30s an angel. Thanks, Mom, but if things get worse, I'll ask for your help, Scott said. Of course, she replied excitedly. It was ridiculous, she was ready to fight his battles at work just because he had a bad day. I regretted ever agreeing to live with her. If I stayed home all day, I would go crazy. So I decided to put my daughter in daycare and return to work. When I told my mother-in-law, she got upset. "Why do you have to work?" she snapped. I calmly said, "Well, now you can have the house all to yourself." She seemed to like that idea and just muttered, "Don't neglect your housework," before dropping the argument. Dealing with her was exhausting, but once I started working again, I felt less stressed. But a year after she moved in, a new problem came up. It was my daughter's second birthday. We had a small party with cake and presents, but she was in the middle of her terrible twos phase, so her mood was unpredictable. "Here's a present, open it," my mother-in-law said happily. "No," my daughter yelled, pushing the gift away. My mother-in-law looked surprised but stayed calm, thinking the cake might cheer her up. She scooped some up with a fork and held it out. "Here's your favorite shortcake." Again, my daughter shouted, "No," and swatted the cake away. The cream flew straight onto my mother-in-law's forehead. That was the last straw. "Enough, you're acting like this because I've been too nice to you," she yelled at my 2-year-old. Startled, my daughter burst into tears. "What are you doing? She's just a child," I said, picking her up to comfort her. "Shut up, what an unlovable grandchild," my mother-in-law snapped. I glared at her. "Well, what an immature grandmother." "What did you just say?" she screamed. I couldn't believe it. How could an adult talk to a toddler like that? "You're so rude, can't you fix that attitude of yours?" she yelled. As we argued, Scott finally stepped in, but instead of defending us, he took his mother's side. "You should be protecting your daughter, not hiding behind your mother," he said. I was speechless. At that moment, I realized Scott would never stand up for me or our daughter. I was furious and said, "We can always have more kids, but I only have one mom." His response shocked me. "That's the worst thing I've ever heard. What a horrible thing to say." Before I could say anything else, my mother-in-law cut in. "Hey, don't talk bad about Scott," she yelled. "Neither you nor your child are cute. Get out of this house." I froze. This house? I paused, trying to process it, and then replied calmly, "Understood," and started packing. Scott looked flustered. "Hey, you don't have to leave," he said. "But your precious mother told me to, right? I must obey," I said coldly. "Scott, don't waste time with her. Come eat cake with me," my mother-in-law said, smiling smugly. That was the last straw. I silently decided to stand up for myself. Without another word, I grabbed my daughter and left for my parents' house. I ignored Scott's calls and focused on what I needed to do. I filled out divorce papers and sent them to Scott. To my surprise, he filled them out and sent them back without a fight. I immediately submitted them to the city office. Then I called him. "I submitted the divorce papers, so thanks for filling them out," I said. "Yeah, so, me and my mom can keep living in the apartment, right? I mean, you left on your own," he replied. "Sure, as long as you pay the rent," I said. "Of course, this was the apartment you rented, so I was worried when you left, but I figured I just need to change the lease to my name. Thanks for providing a comfortable place for me and my mom," he said, sounding proud. "I'm glad it worked out," I replied. "By the way, how much is the rent?" "Huh? What do you mean? Just tell me the actual rent, don't joke around," he snapped. "I'm not joking. The rent is about 150,000 yen. What? What are you talking about?" "That's because I'm the owner of the apartment," I said. There was a long silence on the other end. "What? Remember we talked about it when we got married? I made a lot of money from stocks and bought this apartment. You probably thought it was a rental." Scott was completely silent, clearly shocked. "If you can't afford the 150,000 yen rent, I'll just sell the place," I continued. "It'll sell fast." Wait. If you sell it, where will my mom and I live?" he panicked. "I don't care, you better leave quickly, or I'll report you to the management company." I hung up, blocked his number, and later demanded child support through my lawyer. My lawyer told me Scott looked worn out, both mentally and financially. He was struggling with paying child support and supporting his mother. His mother even came with him to the negotiations, and they spent the whole time blaming each other. "It's your fault." "No, it's your fault." Their close relationship, which had seemed so overbearing to me, quickly fell apart when they lost their comfortable lifestyle. Maybe their bond wasn't as strong as it appeared, but that wasn't my problem anymore. On my end, I sold the apartment for a surprisingly good price. I saved the money for my daughter's future and now live with my parents while working hard. I hope to find love again someday, but for now, my main focus is earning as much as I can for my daughter. I also promised myself I would never be as controlling or intrusive in my daughter's life as my former mother-in-law had been. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more great stories. Don't forget to tap the notification bell, so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts in the comments, we love hearing from you. See you next time, and take care.